Hello, my name is T Willing, and I'm going to talk to you today about my after. I'm starting to do a normal recording after I do the 8 fixed points, the 8 1 minute recordings per day, give or take 1 minute, about my T Calendar and my Erdology. Various assorted points, whatever I think about that I want to muse about. I'm going to muse about it and just talk about it, and I'll talk for whatever long the muse lasts. My T calendar is about the 8 fixed points in the Earth's orbit around the sun, and those 8 fixed points in the Earth's orbit around the sun. Those 8 fixed points, I go with the first rule of mathematics, which is to measure to and from fixed points. But I don't, on the other hand, use the Arabic number system. I use the Elder Futhark number system because the Elder Futhark number system is profoundly older by thousands of years. And the Elder Futhark system is actually the scaffolding parent of Hebrew. And so you have the Hebrew language was created based on using the Hebrew language began as an aspect of the cuneiform languages, because those were the biggest languages at the time. And they were whatever their original name was, we don't know, because the word cuneiform means you take a stick, a thin stick, you cut it in half, and then you use the wedge end of that to mark into either clay or some that effect, or it's a real quick form of writing. And no curves, just basically it's kind of like stipple, but it's shaped stipple. And they with one end being a slightly wider wedge, and the other end being coming to a point. That hence the separating a twig into separate sections, and then using the end to make the marks with. And so the ideas came from cuneiform, but the shape of the characters came from Hebrew. And the only thing that I can really assume to reason why they use the Hebrew as a scaffolding for the Hebrew is as some type of a divine seal, some type of a otherworldly, mythical, ethical, ethereal seal, to use the Elder Futhark, better known as the Viking, as the language the Vikings used, the runic Elder Futhark. The runes being having the Latin definition of secret or hidden meaning. So if you take that secret or hidden meaning concept and apply it to the divine, the ethereal, the astral, also the Akashic field, that theory is based on my T calendar and my Erdology work is not a theory. I can quite physically, tangibly, literally prove there is a language built into the Earth's orbit around the sun. I can prove there's a language there, because you take but the primer is not English or Arabic, because those are millennia younger. English did not come around until 700, 800, 900 AD. Arabic didn't start coming into some kind of an existence until about 300 BC. So there's 1,000 years between 3 and 7. 300 BC, 780. There's 1,000 years there. So the Arabic numbers are too young by at least a millennia, if not 2 or 3, because the earliest cuneiform started to come around 35, 32, 2800 BC. The earliest Sumerian cuneiform is a few centuries older than the pyramids of Egypt. pyramids of Egypt were started about 2600 BC. The last one was created about 2100 BC, right before the Hyksos invaded. And the Hyksos means Lord of the Sheep, which is actually a pretty heavy-duty insult. Because it doesn't actually mean Lord of the Sheep, it means of the sheep, and that's neither here nor there. But adults know what that means. It's a pretty heavy-duty insult. But it's also a secondary reference to the over the millennia created concept of the hoofed one, the feet, the lower body of a sheep or a goat or something like that, and the upper body of somewhat masculine upper body, and then the head with horns and such. That's in reference that's in the same line of that's in the same etymology line. But you won't be able to get many of the religious scholars to agree to that, because that means that the Hyksos line is a line that comes from some not exactly nice place, and the descendants of the Hyksos line are radically embarrassed about their own heritage, because their own heritage is not that great. However, just because their heritage is not that great does not mean that it's they didn't achieve various sort of goals like creating Hebrew. That has a really funky and highly mythical, highly unethical and such beginning, because the most of the story that Moses told, I mean, he wrote in his own words, or at least his autobiographer wrote in his own words, that he was a proud braggart liar. He liked to lie a lot, and he not only did he like to lie a lot, but he also got punished. The divine punished his butt a lot. He was punished so much that he wasn't allowed into the quote unquote Holy Land, which is, there's a whole story behind that, huge story behind that, which actually, interesting enough, involves King Tut, not Seti the First. That's fiction. That's not true. The pharaoh that Moses went against was King Tut, the 18-year-old King Tut, who was killed in battle. Sort of, he had his patella ripped off when he fell off, because the body evidence of his body is that there was no possible way he could have stood on a chariot at all, let alone commanded a battle from a chariot. That's just, he had a club foot. He had 150, 200 canes in his tomb. He was the absolute byproduct of too many generations of inbreeding. He was not entirely dissimilar to the French painter who painted about the Moulin Rouge, Toussaint. I think his name was Henri Tussaud. He painted about the Moulin Rouge and did dozens of paintings. Was a major famous painter, but he was extremely hammered because his parents were first cousins, and his legs were significantly short, and he didn't live till he was dead by like late 20s, middle 30s. He was dead because his body didn't work very well. Similar to the King of Spain, who was so inbred that he did not actually have a brain. He was hardly able to speak. Learning languages was not going to happen. He didn't have enough cerebral matter to learn how to speak, to learn how to write. When he died fairly early, when they did an autopsy, and there was issues with it internally, and but the Elder Futhark language is the basis of the of the language of Hebrew, which where it was created, how it was created, and all those details. The even the most scholarly of Hebrew scholars, even the most learned of them, have decades of experience, close to a century of individual experience, because they've been studying it for most of their 60, 70, 80, 90 years. Then their teachers had been studying it for almost a century, and their teachers had been studying it for almost a century. Go back a few thousand years, and you have the point. They don't know the origins. They can only assume what the origins are based off of assuming it comes from Aramaic, which is only kind of true. But it's that I can mathematically prove that the Elder Futhark is the parent of Hebrew. So you have the Vikings used it as a divination tool, and all the other cultures that use the rune Elder Futhark used it as a divination tool too. So if it's been used for the last 1,000 or so, 2,000 years or so as a recognized, defined, understandable communication tool with the divine, then if you use a divine tool and you put markings on the side of it, then the logical linear understanding would be is that the Hebrew language was created in order to seal shut whatever was inside of the Elder Futhark. And and I can prove this by, you take the sounds, A-L-E-F. A would be Anzus, L would be Lagus, E would be Iwaz, and then you go right over to Fehu. And this is an interesting thing about what I found in research, which took a couple days to think it through. Okay. If you take Egypt, if you take the pyramids, and you put a dot in the middle of the farthest north, which is Judefre, and then you go down to Khufu and put a dot right dead center in the middle of Khufu. Then you go over a little bit over to Khafre and put a dot right dead center in the middle of Khafre, and then go over to Menkaure, put a dot in the middle of that one, and then go down, then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, all the way down up to and through the Bat Pyramid, which is the farthest south. You have an interesting creation. Okay? That line, that creation line, allows you to see something that's very, very, very interesting, especially for the entire history of Rome. I mean, from the moment that Romulus and Remus were born in Alba Longa to the point where they live their life in some type of a structure, surrounded by lots and lots of family, adopted family, of course, and other family, of course, on the Palatine Hill, which has some way interesting connotations to it, because the only place for an underground structure in the entire area of the entire Mediterranean is the filled dirt under the floor of the Roman Forum West. From the Capitoline Hill to the Vilia Hill, from the Esquiline Hill to the Capitoline Hill, there's a pit there of filled dirt that goes down between 50 and a couple hundred feet. I theorize that pit used to be a building that they carved. At some point in the past, they excavated it out, and then built a structure, and then built it up to, and then the roof is the ground floor of the Roman Forum, and the top, the ceiling of the pit is the floor of the Forum, and it was really, really solidly constructed. However, there's numerous accounts of sinkholes appearing in the middle, in the Forum, where the roof would collapse because it's old, hundreds, thousands of years old. Who knows? And this was this is 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 years ago. So if it's 1,000 years old, then if it's a couple hundred years old to 1,000 years old when those events happened, and it's been 2,000 plus years since, that's kind of old. So there may not be that much evidence remaining of the timbers or the stonemasonry in the pit, but it also hasn't been looked at yet. So whether or not archaeologists are willing to go down there and do some work on that, that's an entirely different question. And since they just did some archaeology around in the lapis niger, which actually means the beast in the pit, that beast in the pit, literally, the beast in the pit is literally what lapis niger translates to in some unknown language, because Latin would not exist. Even Proto-Latin would not exist for another century or two after 576 BC. Whatever languages that were used in that city before, it was rechristened. Interesting name. Renamed Rome after its conquering general Romulus. Shortly before, during, or after he was using the Memento Mori ceremony to dispatch his brother. Very famous story. He used the ceremony, but the ceremony was then in the post Paul controlling the city of Rome. Most of that history was systematically erased by a 1,700-year-long Dark Age. Well, 16 and change year long Dark Age, and there's still information from that time period that's still being ignored, still being glossed over, and still being, oh, that didn't happen that way. No. So you have but that pit is where I'm assuming the instead of being upright, the circle is put down around that the portion of the western portion of the Roman Forum, between the Viglia and Capitoline Hills, between the Esquiline and Palatine Hills. That's where the circle was put, the Elder Futhark circle, and it was attached by some ancient religion means, to the buildings that are surrounding there, because those buildings were put onto they're partially, the foundations are on the hills. As the hills come together into the form at the base, the hills come like this. Well, if the dirt line is here, then you're going to have, just below the dirt line is going to be some more solid rock. All you have to do is put some pillar down. The back part of the building sits on rock. The front part of the building sits on pillars, and the building is nice and stable on fill dirt, mostly from floods. And those floods are talked about inside of the Adventure of Poseidon, because the Adventures of Poseidon, or what is Poseidon or Neptune, whatever the Roman version of the Greek concept is, which plays those flooding plays a gigantically massive part in the Passion Play of the origins of Vulcan, the Roman god of volcanoes and of eruptions and earthquakes and those kind of things. Because he was when he was first born, however, he was born from his mother Juno, which is the temple complex on the far north side of the Capitoline Hill. You have the divot, and then you have the complex to south of there, which would be the complex of Jupiter. Now, right after Vulcan was born to his mother Juno, there was a giant, mega cyclonic hurricane type storm that came up and pulled the newborn, or the toddler Vulcan, from his mother's arms, presumably off the Tarpon Rock. And he landed not where you normally land. He landed in a wave surge from Neptune Poseidon. And when he landed, he was captured by the water, and the water rescued him from a inappropriately slow, fast deceleration, and he was carried, and a wave caught him and took him down the middle of the Roman Forum to the Vilia Hill, where the wave then crashed onto the Vilia Hill and deposited the newborn, or the newly born, or the newly whatevered created god Vulcan on the Vilia Hill, inside, or at least close to, the temple of Venus, where Venus then emerged. Either Venus or Venus, a clergy of Venus, emerged from the temple, found the boy clinging to life, but injured, and picked him up and brought him into the temple, and nursed him back to health. And eventually Venus and Vulcan married, and did whatever they did. But the injuries from the falling off the Tarpon Rock and the smashing into the Palatine and into the Vilia Hill are why he has facial injuries and a back injury and a leg injury, and he walks with a limp because of those injuries when he was a child. And because he was pulled from his mother's arms by the power of the sea, by the power of the trident, and taken to, now that over the Roman Forum West, I theorize there was a pit there, and that pit, the Niger means dark something, lapis means carved into, so it's a lapis means pit, or some type of indentation, or some type of a permanent marking. It's marked, and it's marked with something black. Niger means black, or at least darkish thing. So you have a pit, a pit with a dark thing in it. Lapis Niger. You know, the dark things, or flip it the other direction and say, Niger lapis, because Latin, we don't know which, whatever language, we don't know if it was translated directly in, or it was first, last, first, and the dark thing in the pit. Well, that's just about the perfect description for the Minotaur. And so you have some interesting stuff regarding a circle, and then stuff is written inside the circle. Now, the stuff written inside the circle back to Egypt, and back to the thing. If you take that shape of the pyramids, and the 2-3-year-olds game where they connect the dots, if you take that shape and you apply it, you go and you apply it from the A to the E, and then the A to the A to the E, and the L to the F, then that shape with the shape that's created is literally a realistic form of the character of Aleph in Hebrew. That's the first character. And if you do that for all the rest of the Hebrew characters, use the spine shape, you literally make the shape of the Hebrew characters using the double spine. Now, the reason why I say double spine is because the pyramids are the double spine of Janus. One face looking west, one face looking east. Most familiar with the concept of Old Man Winter and Baby New Year. Well, that's Janus, just exaggerated, because it used to be just an older man looking west and a young man looking east. Well, Western modern culture has made the young man old, really, really old, and the young man looking west to be an infant, representing the old year that's dying and the new year that's just being born on December 31st, January 1st. And so that's that if you graphic arts work it and you put the spines back to back, if you overlap them, then this shape is perfect to the shape of the pyramids. So the pyramids and Janus is the same thing, and every aspect of Rome revolved around the aspects of the worship of uh, the worship and the observance and the understanding of Janus, which is the foundation ceremony of the Memento Mori ceremony, which the Memento Mori ceremony was used multiple times to dispatch Jews, including Jesus. In the crucifixion, you could see it written into the description of his events is about 40 different layers. Some long sequences, some short sequences, some really short sequences, some different. There's more than 40 examples of the Memento Mori ceremony written into the Passion of the Christ. You have the Memento Mori ceremony goes as follows. Part 0 is a group of people. Part 1A is some type of a physical altercation where the people involved create a hierarchical structure of who's the strongest, who's the weakest, who's the smartest, who's the dumbest, so on. Okay? The top become alpha and the bottom become betas, and then there's all kinds of different, and also the females make their own hierarchical structure based on their own parameters and situations. And you then have that's 1A, where usually that's associated with some type of violence, either physical or mental or emotional violence, to be able to rise to the top of the heap or fall to the bottom of the heap, or someplace somewhere in the middle. 1B is the emotional response of, but I want to be here, or I'm perfectly cool, content, and wonderful, and I have great emotions about where I'm at, or I've been beat down, and I feel, and I'm a really sore loser about being at the bottom of the heap, despite the fact that I want to be up here, or I want to be at a better hierarchical structure position than I'm at now. And the people at the top usually have to spend time licking their wounds, but they're also going, "Hey, congratulations to me! I won." All kinds of pleasant emotions with that, and now that I've won, what are the trappings that I get? What do I get for winning? And depending on culture, there's all kinds of interesting things that you might be able to get from winning, or be able to claim because you won. Well, that's part B. That's part 2. That's 1B. Now 1C is where you put the violence of 1A and the emotional response of 1B together, and you put it into some type of a metaphoric, symbolic basket-ish, and then you Ferris wheel it and let it go across to the divine through various assorted prayers or thinking about it or feeling about it, or all the culture feeling about it or such. And then the culture decides whether or not they approve or disapprove of the actions done. The culture's approval is what powers the Ferris wheel, and then the gifts are then pulled out of the basket by the divine, whatever that is. Other gifts are put into the basket, and the basket is then returned, which makes part 3. Part 2 is the community going, okay, do we like this or not like this? And as the basket returns, the community then pays attention to, or hopefully pays attention to, whether or not something is okay or not based off of the return to the basket. And that's what the Romans called the west face of Janus. Is this a good gift? Good west face Janus, or a bad gift, bad west face Janus? Or simplifying it, if it's bad, then it's west face Janus, and if it's good, it's east face Janus. And the Jews call the same thing Mezuzah. I think that's how I pronounce it. Mezuzah. That's how the Jews pronounce the same exact concept. Okay. Now, the Elder Futhark plays a part in this, because the Elder Futhark, because you have the double face and you have the Mezuzah and the whole Memento Mori ceremony thing that is working on going on, and you have um, as you have these functions and structures that are occurring, you also have the semi-negative availability of there's a beast in that down there. So you have a beast aspect that is has some association with the Hyksos and some kind of a sheep goat type situation, because Hyksos is not specific about the Hyksos does not translate specifically about if it's sheep or it's goats or it's both, because a lot of shepherds tended both sheep and goats at the same time because those two animals can coexist fairly easily. There's the goats will sometimes defend the sheep, and the sheep will provide for the goats. So they have a mutually semi sort of beneficial relationship, and the shepherd just makes sure that all the flock stays together and is not killed by various sort of predators like dogs and wolves. Now, to continue on with the function and structure of what's going on. These all play very intricate parts in the T calendar, because without the T calendar, the circle would not exist, because the circle is a representation of the Earth's orbit around the sun, and those 8 fixed points make the T calendar, and and you're interacting with your birth date and the dates of those 8 fixed points become the Erdology, because you combine your words, the words from your specific the letters of your life add together to make words. You take your words and add them to the words that are created based on the 8 fixed points, those calendars, and you start creating words. Well, when you start creating words, that is literally physically the definition of the Akashic field, the Akashic language, that was hypothesized by a Russian in the early 1800s, late 1700s, but had been part of common vernacular for a while. But also the Dark Age silenced a lot of that stuff, so it was part of the vernacular of the cultures that the Vatican was still trying to kill as late as the about the first decade of the 1800s. There were still 2 or 3 witch trials that did execute people. So you had the release of this information through the fact that people were still being dispatched by the Vatican, and so you have things become complicated, very complicated. Now you add there's a whole gladiator, Hercules gladiator situation going on there, because when Vespasian decided to move the gladiator battles from the cattle forum that's just south of the Circus Maximus, next to the Temple of Hercules, and the Temple of Hercules is who inspired the creation of the gladiator games. The gladiator games originally were an aspect of a recreation of some of his tasks. Although over 1,500 years they changed that mythology changed a lot. Although the gladiators were not mythological, the parts they were playing, the characters they were playing were partially mythological, and over time that it evolved a little bit to, as the Romans won battles, they took the old stories out and put let's recreate this battle, let's recreate that battle. So let's recreate the sea battle of Carthage, or this ground battle or that ground battle, and the audience would then watch the recreations of these battles through the gladiators, and the end results were always predetermined, but that's beside the point. When Vespasian moved the gladiator battles from where they had been for the last several centuries to 1,000 years to had the palace of Nero taken apart, and use the materials from his palace to build the Colosseum, and the gladiator battles were there. The Colosseum is directly east by several hundred feet from the Temple of Venus. So that they became a they became a Janus situation with each other. Janus being east face darkness, and west face darkness, and became semi the females in darkness became a huge deal to that culture, and the west face and the east face became the gladiator battles and the Hercules and honoring Hercules and all that kind of stuff. Also, Commodus played the role of Hercules in more than 100. He went into the arena more than 100 times. In fact, that's one of the reasons why he was mythologically the mythological reason, but he was really dealt with it accordingly. It's because he wanted to be crowned emperor and gladiator at the same time. It's like problem is that gladiators were slaves, and the emperor was not. So you had a mixed situation going on there. There's a lot of secondary stories regarding the creation of the Futhark and the creation of Erdology and such, because all these little passion plays apply themselves to the creation of the Futhark language, the creation of the T Calendar and AErdology, because the T Calendar and AErdology were used as a seal to keep the lapis in the Niger, keep the Niger in the lapis, the beast in the pit, and whatever that beast was, be it the Minotaur or whatever, that would make the palace, the structures on top of the Palatine Hill, the Palace of Knossos. Now the other structure that has been recently found a few decades ago on the island of Crete. Well, when the stories were first written about the island of Crete and the Palace of Knossos, we have no idea what language was used. We assume it was Linear A, which has not been translated yet. It could not have been Linear B because it was centuries from being invented. Or it could have been one of 20 other languages that we don't know, and we don't have evidence for them. So it had to be written in that language, and then it was translated into language B, then C, then D, then E, then F and G, and then half a millennia later, it was finally started to be translated into Greek, and then several centuries later, it had to be translated into Latin, and that's Latin. It's Proto-Latin. Then it had to be translated into Latin 1, and then it starts to come into a situation where it can actually start being translated into a language that is definable and understandable to modern scholars, because we're now starting to become familiar with those languages, and we can translate them at least some percent, somewhere between 28% and 90%. We can translate them. The last 10% is regional, cultural, and decade appropriate meanings, and we don't have that. We don't have access to what that stuff meant. So you have the 20 language changes from the point where the stories were first written down to the Latin 2, that we still have a pretty good idea what Latin 2 means. Pretty good idea. About 99% have it down. Some words are not. We don't know what they meant. What they meant, and some words are. Oh, this is the same. They use it the same way in 1, 2, and 3, or they use it the same 1, 2, and 4. So we have a working knowledge to be able to how to translate that one word or that one phrase from Latin 2, but we don't have an idea what it was in 3 and 5. You can go through a lot of story changes in translating from one language to another language 20 times, because different rulers have different. I want to see X and I don't want to see Y, and the next ruler has their own. I want to see A, but I don't want to see B, and C and X and Y I couldn't care less about. Either include them, don't include them, or whatever. I don't care. Then there's the rulers. The next ruler says, I want to focus exclusively on C, and don't have D there at all. Have a little bit of A and have some B, because B I semi-like, but X and Y, if you include anything, even a hint of X and Y, I get to be very, very violently inappropriate with you. Transcriber, linguist, etymologist, the royal scribe, I get to be very violent against you if you write about A and B at all. The story began as a translation of I want to emphasize A and B. Well, ruler number 4 doesn't like A and B period, so it's not included. So you have 20 of those dynamics, 20 to 30 of those dynamics that are going on. So the story will change, and the how you find out that it changes because over time, those the rulers bragged that they changed stories, that they bragged that I don't like this, so therefore I'm going to emphasize this and de-emphasize this because this is good and this is bad. Well, all that bad stuff does exist, and someone thinks that bad thing is a good thing, and someone thinks that your good thing is a bad thing. So you have all kinds of really weird stuff going on in these patterns, in these situations that must be addressed. So we don't know where the Palace of Knossos was. They think it's on Crete, and I think it's on the Palatine Hill, because there is no labyrinth in Crete. There is no pit. There is a pit on the Roman Forum. There's a big pit, and there's multiple references to the pit, including the fact that the Trader's Post was renamed at 210 AD as the umbilicus. The umbilicuses are tubes that go down a long way, because an umbilical cord attaches into a female, so it goes down and then such. So, biology and anatomy class, look it up. But so you have umbilicus that talks about a tube going down, and you have the lapis niger, which means a dark thing in a carving. It's not specific about what kind, depth, or dimensions of the carving. It just says the carving, or at least an indentation. A permanent mark, for lack of a better description, in the current languages. And so there's mountains going on surrounding this structure, that the circle with the genus lines inside of it that make up the Hebrew language, that created the characters of Hebrew. There's a lot going on now, and with that lot going on, how this applies to you? Well, if you have the character of A in your existence, then all the characters all the Hebrew that have the sound of A, all the characters that have the sound of A, those characters apply. Now, if you have if you have A in one count, and L in another count, and an E in a different count, and an L in a different count, your life, the counts of your life, if you can find ALEF, or you can find MEM, or you can find any of the other 20 some characters of Hebrew, if you can find those sounds in your life, then you are literally using the Elder Futhark, the T Calendar and AErdology. You're literally finding Hebrew letters in the collection of those letters, in the collection of those letters, in the collection of those characters, numbers to letters. Those characters, you're literally finding the letters of Hebrew in those characters. So that right there proves that you will find words in, which is the hypothesis of the Akashic field. You will find words in your counts, because your counts, if you remove the Arabic, then your counts become letters. Characters become letters. Character is two things at the same time. It's both a letter and a number at the same. It's both a letter and a number. It's a character. It's a letter and a number. In Hebrew, in Arabic, that character has a translation as the Arabic number system. In English, that character translates to F through D. So character, to the divisions. Here's the version. Here's its translation into Arabic. Here's its translation in English. Then now apply it. And as you apply it, you're going to find various assorted. You're going to find A. You're going to find the fourth character. You're going to find L. You're going to find E. You're going to find F. You're going to find Gimel. You're going to find all these other characters. You're going to find the sounds there, and you're going to find Hebrew letters. And if you find enough Hebrew letters, you're going to be able to make words. So therefore, the only thing between now and the actual proving the Akashic field language is the amount of time it takes to work out the math. That's the only thing that's between now and then, is the ability to work out the math. That's it. Thank you.